morning.
Morning.
The Metropolitan Planning Organization will convene. It's January 17th. It's 9 o'clock. Could we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Thank you all. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can I have a roll call, please?
Let's go around the table. We have some new members here. We'll start with Commissioner Hammond.
Joe Kilrain, Cape Coral, District 5.
Mike Miller, Vice Mayor, City of Sanibel.
Rachel Kaduke, Cape Coral City Council, District 7.
Kevin Wayne, Chairman of the Board and District 1 County Commissioner.
Jennifer Nelson Lastra, District 4, City of Cape Coral, and Presiding Officer.
Good morning, David Mellica, County Commissioner, District 3.
Good morning, Councilwoman Teresa Watkins Brown, Ward 1.
Good morning, Cecil Pinner, County Commissioner, District 2.
Good morning, Diana Giraldo, City of Fort Myers, Ward 2.
John McLean, Mayor of the Village of Estero.
We have a quorum?
Don Scott, Lee County MPO.
We have a quorum, sir? Do we
Yes.
have a quorum?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, LK, for being here. For any new people, OK is our Secretary for District 1 from FDOT. He and I have been working together for as long as I've been here. So appreciate your assistance and thank you for the call last night. I know we're going to work through our issues. Appreciate it very much. Public comment on consent agenda items. Let's see any. Let's go to item number 2, consent agenda. Anybody have an opportunity to review and could approve the minutes from the 22nd of November?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Any opposition? Motion carries unanimously. And I did them second for a reason. Approval of the Executive Director contract extension for Don Scott. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, my motion to approve the consent agenda would include both.
I'm sorry. I separated them just because I wanted to at least say some comments about Don. I didn't want
No, I
to.
think that's really appropriate. That's kind of where I was going to go too. You know, I've had the pleasure of serving with Mr. Scott here at the MPO for almost 11 years now. I've been on the county commission. Mr. Scott's done a great job. I looked at the contract extension. Obviously, you know, no real substantive changes, same salary, same everything. So he's doing a great job. I appreciate the work that he's done. So very supportive of supporting him to continue as our MPO director.
I appreciate the motion. Second? Second? Couple things, and I appreciate it just for a comment. Yeah, Brian, I couldn't agree with you more. 18 years I've been working with Don. I remember back, and I don't know how many people at this table, when we were part of the RPC, it was one entity. Was anyone here during those days? God, I'm old. Okay. Well, back in yesterday, we actually used to be under the umbrella of RPC, and MPO was underneath it. So we separated a long time ago. We created the executive branch of the MPO as well to try to do some lifting and try to separate. It really was over cost back then. Continue to do so. Don, listen, as someone on the executive team, you know, at the meetings, I'm certainly privileged and honored to work with you. I think you've done an amazing job. You're always more than prepared. You make sure we're up on things, constantly doing things. So thank you very much. I just thought the comments, as the longest serving member, or the oldest, I guess.
Thank you.
I want to say thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Any other comments? Anyone opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Congratulations. Item number 3, public comments should be taken after every public hearing and every new business. Public hearing item. Don, I'll turn it back to you. Number 4.
It's a public hearing item and calls a roll call vote. The first 2 are actually amendments, adding new projects into the TIP The second two are revising the money for Lee-Tran that was in there previously in November but wasn't at the right amount, and then also a modification on the resurfacing project on US 41 and north of Pondella to 78. The first two are grants from Federal Transit Administration, 5310, for Hope Hospice in operating funds for community services, providing trips and stuff, and Hope Hospice also for capital funding as well. And $300,000 for Dr. Pike. Do I have any questions? Otherwise, we're open up for public comment.
Any questions from the board? Seeing none?
Approval of the proposed amendments to the fiscal year 2029 CIP.
I'll second that.
I have a motion, a second. I'll look, is there any public comment? Open public comment up. Seeing none, I'll close public comment, bring it back to the board. Any other discussion? Any other objections?
Okay. A roll call. Yep. Commissioner Wayne. Yes. Commissioner Pendergrass.
Yes.
Commissioner Malika.
Yes.
Commissioner Hammond.
Yes.
Councilmember Giraldo.
Yes.
Councilmember Watkins Brown.
Yes.
Councilmember Lehman. Yes. Councilmember Kilrain.
Yes.
Councilmember Kaduke.
Yes.
Councilmember Nelson Lastro.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Miller.
Yes.
Mayor McLean.
Yes.
And it passes.
Thank you very much. Let's move on to number 5, review and approve the regional congestion management scope. Give it to you again, Don.
So this was a promise that we made when that came up as part of the discussions last year, the legislation about combining the two MPOs, that we look at some of the congestion issues between the two counties, particularly during peak hour. So we're doing the update of the congestion management element for both counties, essentially following the regional network, which I'll pull up in a second, but also kind of zeroing in on the portion that's their urbanized area now comes all the way up to Alika Road. So we're kind of, will be more in depth in there. So when you look at it, it'll be the CMP for the whole county, but then there'll also be a regional component from the middle part of that process. We've had this discussion down in Collier as well. It will be going to their board next month. Essentially, one other part that we added into this was do an origin destination study between the two counties, because we've had some comments as part of the long-range plan of, oh, we should do this road over here. That will help a lot. And we want to look more closely at what the commuting patterns are between the two counties. And I open it up for any comments or questions. Otherwise, we're looking for approval. And this was the regional network. This was last approved back in 2017. We'll do an update to it, but this was part of our priorities for TRIP come out of that as well. But this is what was approved by the two MPOs previously for the regional network. But we will update as necessary. Logan Boulevard there is showed that as proposed. That's obviously been done since that time frame. Yes, sir.
I presume that both counties pursue the funding on their own, and how is that then laid together for the regional approach here? Is there any discussion on funding with that from a joint standpoint?
So we're using both of our own planning funds to do this, and we have general planning consultants in both, so we're choosing one that's on both of our lists to do the project as well. So there's coordination in there, but we both pay our own separate bills as part of this process.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hammond.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Question, so I see that the TAC and CAC hadn't had a chance.
Oh, yeah, yes, they've approved that, yes.
Both approved.
Yep.
Did they have anything they wanted to add to the scope? Because that's what we're approving today, is just the scope.
No, it's the way it is right now. Thanks for bringing that up.
Yes, Mike.
How was the distribution of the fee between the two organizations allocated? How was that determined?
We haven't done negotiations specifically yet, so we'll get into the more detail, but the money that we have set in the UPWP is what's at the bottom here. But I don't know why I keep doing that. If I ever get to it. So this was the money that was laid out from each of us They have like a first year, they didn't put what the part of the second year was as part of that process. So we'll have to figure that specifically out as part of the negotiations.
Any other questions?
You know, one last question, Mr. Chair, if I may. I believe I think the legislature is looking at the idea of combining potentially the Lee and Collier MPO, and one of their thoughts is they don't know or don't believe that we coordinate together very often. Are we going to provide some sort of report to the legislative delegation on our efforts in working with Collier? I mean, certainly here's one example. We're doing this with Collier to try and work more closely with them.
You're kind of jumping ahead on the agenda, because on number 9, we're going to talk about the consolidation study that FTOT is going to fund as part of that process.
Okay.
But yes, this part of it came out of responses that what we were doing now and what we would do moving forward, and then more detail we'll get into the consolidation study.
Because the members of our delegation are hardworking folks, and they get thousands of bills thrown at them, every session. So they may not be fully involved in every single detail of what we vote on at the MPO, but if we could just send them a little report from time to time, here's a couple efforts that we have underway where we're working with Collier, and because I believe the position of the board has always been that we wanted to maintain our own Lee County MPO, and so I believe if we want to justify that, we can send them reports of the activities that we're doing that coordinate with Collier, like this.
And I just to follow up, and I think the home rule aspect of that is important, so I would agree that that's the way to approach it, too.
Commissioner Pendergrass?
Yeah, well, obviously, thank you for bringing that, but obviously, someone don't care about home rules. Reference to delegation, I think it's really one member who attended a meeting I had last year and Corkscrew with the Corkscrew Alliance, and basically his comments were basically, the nutshell is he likes to shake trees and he wants more things for Bonita, which is Bonita Beach Road, and that's all he really cares about. He's thinking if he does this effort, it might get attention more for his Venetian residents. But at the end of the day, the MPO, we all know what it does here, is countywide and jurisdictionally Southwest Florida, Charlotte, and Collier County. So I think Mr. Ham is right. We need to send a letter saying this is what we do. This is the benefits for the whole region, not just for one road or one community. And I think that's what the one member of the delegation is looking at, just trying to get something for his own personal businesses or his constituents in Bonita Springs. And that's all been documented too, so thank you.
Commissioner Maleka?
I haven't been here 18 years, but I just...
Good for you.
But 18 weeks maybe, we're approaching it. Anyway, my quick question is on the allocation of the split between the county budgets for this. Historically, is that a 50-50, or is it based on population, or how do they weight the split of the funding allocations for the shared project?
So we don't do it 50-50. We do it more based on what the tasks are in the end and what they have to do versus what we have to do. But you're actually raising one of the issues that we talked about from a combining standpoint, because there is certain money that, since the urban area is growing up to Alika Road, is whatever, it's a third of our county, something like that, that doesn't get split based on that process. And that's one of the things we're trying to address as part of this whole process as well.
Thank you.
Going back to the letter back to our state representatives, Don probably going to write it, but is it going to come from the Lee County Commissioners or from Don and the MPO office?
I think it's going to come from the MPO board. Obviously, I think Don could draft it. I think Don could bring it back to us. We could certainly make sure it addresses that. I mean, the other thing, Mayor, just to answer, or broaden this a little bit, I mean, we not only meet with Collier, but we also meet with Charlotte. I think we have great working relationship with both. We're always in communication. Commissioners certainly have done a great job of doing that long before I got up to the commission. So it's unfortunate that people don't really appreciate it, the way we operate and how we operate. And we recognize that we're the bigger community, and certainly Charlotte and Collier would more than say that. So they get the fact that we have probably more intensified, more needs. Just at least
Twice as many members too, which has come up many, many times, and there's a long history in there. We had an item on I-75 where it was an earmark. It was listed in federal regulations or federal whatever they call it as I-75 in Lee and Collier counties, but it was a Lee County project. FTOT ended up stepping in and splitting the money between the two to resolve the issue, but it's gone back to that time frame where it's been brought up that we can outvote them in a joint meeting. Well, we have twice as many members. We get combined and we follow state statutes and federal regulations, we're still going to outvote them, but we'll see what happens moving forward.
Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
I think that, and as we move forward in the conversation today, that the need for coordination, when I looked at this item, we're next to other counties and the coordination is among with other counties. So we start, I understand doing the particular scope of work for the congestion management scope of work, and that's something that we consistently do in the coordination with other counties. But I think that as we move forward in the conversation, kind of trying to consolidate all the MPOs has a lot of disadvantages for our region and how we ask for the money and the highlights that we have, and that's something that we need to keep in mind as we move forward. That this can be a disadvantage for us.
I think most members would agree with that. I mean, when you really look at Charlotte and Collier, I think if you put the two together, probably half of Lee County. So I know, we just have immense needs, and I understand the reasoning, and it's unfortunate that we're going through any type of conversation to consolidate, because it becomes more difficult. But in the same token, Charlotte's always amazed at how do we get a group, as many elected officials in this room, to work together. So they're always just fascinated with the fact that we have 19 members and we work the way we do. Like, what do you mean you have 6 cities? Yeah, we have 6 cities. We try to work together. So they do respect the situation. It's always about, everyone wants more money for infrastructure when you're growing, but I think they both respect the fact that we have immense needs as our population growth has gone through. And we just have more square miles. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just significantly more. So any other thoughts, Don?
No, I'll talk about it when we talk about the consolidation.
I figured we'd get into this a little bit more later on. It's an action item?
Yes.
Okay. I have a motion.
So I move we approve the proposed scope of services for the development of the congestion management process.
Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Second.
Second from Jennifer. Any other discussion? We need to do a roll call, or I could just do a voice
Regular
vote?
vote, yeah.
Huh?
Just a regular vote.
Okay. Anyone opposed? Seeing no in opposition, motion carries unanimously. Let's go to item number 6.
So we do this every time we update the long-range plan, just constrained roadways list, essentially to try to take something off the table where when we have public meetings, people come in, invariably they'll say, why don't you widen Estero Boulevard or some other place that we aren't going to widen? So a lot of this is done based on what's in each of your comp plans, but also like 6 lanes, for instance, on 41, where it was always planned to be 6 lanes. If you try to do 8 lanes, it's very impactive. Or things like when you get to 8 lanes, you start diminishing your capacity increases as you move forward. So this is the map of the constrained roadways. It doesn't mean that this is forever going to be that way, but for at least this next 5 years of our long-range plan, these are the roadways that we will look at other things like operational improvements, but not looking at widening additional lanes in those areas. Any questions?
Any questions for Don? An action item as well, right?
Yes.
If no questions, can I entertain a motion?
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any public comment? Seeing none, I'll close public comment. A motion and a second. Any other discussion? Anyone opposed? Thank you. Motion carries unanimously. Next is the election of MPO officers. It's ironic that one of the 2 members are here, but historically what we do is we do rotate, and we've had a great rotation by city, by county. It certainly is Councilmember John King's rotation to become the chair, and Vice Mayor Miller to become the vice chair. That's the protocol we've always followed. I'm open to any discussion, or I'll also entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we go forward with the election of officers as highlighted per the tradition and rotation in the agenda here.
Second.
A motion and a second on the floor. Any public comment? I don't see any public comment. I'll close public comment, bring it back up to the board. Any other discussion? We have a motion and a second on the floor. Any objection? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
I assume you're going to keep being the treasurer as well?
Mr. Chairman, I'll nominate Kevin Ruane, County Commissioner, as
I'll second that.
Misery loves company. Anyone opposed? Other than me? No. Thank you all. Happy to be the treasurer again. Don, let's go to number 8.
So yeah, this is a presentation on the old 41, I said at Bonita Beach Road, but it's the old 41 project. FDOT will do this. I don't know, Steven's coming up.
Good morning, Chair, Representatives. I'm Stephen Andrews. I'm the FDOT Project Manager for County Road 887, or the Old 41 PD&E study. So we were invited today to give you an overview of this project and where we are in the status. And I have Mac Dawkins here. He's my consultant PM, and he's going to give the overview for you today. If you have any questions at the end, please feel free to ask.
Thank you, Stephen. As you said, Matt Dawkins with HNTB, supporting Stephen and the department on this project. First, I just wanted to start out with the compass. You've probably seen this from FDOT safety. See there at the top, that's first priority and guiding principle for everything. And then there in the middle is the communities. That's the center of everything we do, so that's why we're here today, to work with you and your communities and get your feedback on this project. I'm sure y'all are familiar with the transportation development process a little bit, but just a refresher for those that aren't. We're currently there in phase 2, the PD&E study phase. So that's where we go through the alternatives analysis and do the environmental studies. And then coming out of that, we move into the design, right-of-way, and construction phases. So currently, the design phase is funded here in Lee County. That's for fiscal year 27. The right-of-way and construction phases are not currently funded. Just a quick agenda, give you a little background on the project, talk through where we're headed with the preferred alternative, and then look forward a little bit with the project cost and schedule. So this project is actually split between Collier County in the south, Lee County in the north. All of the Lee County portions are in the city of Bonita Springs. So it's about 1.25 miles. In Lee County, you can see there in the blue. The southern portion of our project intersects US 41 down in Collier, and the northern portion is on Bonita Beach Road in Bonita Springs. Those are our 2 major intersections in the project. The goals are to relieve congestion. Most of that congestion we're seeing now and projected in the future is at those major intersections on either end. And then improve safety, specifically for cyclists and pedestrians out here. Currently, there are no sidewalks throughout the corridor, no bike lanes. We do know that there are a need for that from field observations and community engagement. So that's one of the things we're looking at. You'll see that in the typical section here in a minute. As far as the preferred alternative, again, just orient yourself. We got US 41 down here at the southern portion, Bonita Beach Road up there at the northern portion. The vast majority of Old 41 is slated for 4-lane widening. You'll see that typical section in a minute. So today it's 2 lanes with turn lanes almost throughout the corridor. Be looking to change that to 4 lanes with turn lanes in a raised median. And then the black portion you see at the very top there, that is slated to be 2 lanes. So the hook going off towards Racetrack Road would be a new quadrant roadway. That would be a 2-lane roadway through the former Greyhound track property. I've been working with the city of Bonita Springs to figure out the alignment and connection of that road, and they've been working with the developer and property owner to reserve some right-of-way for that roadway as well. And that would tie in where there's currently a signal at Racetrack Road and Bonita Beach Road. And then the portion of Old 41 north of that new quadrant roadway, so pretty much through where the former Greyhound track property is, would remain 2 lanes similar to how it is today. The quadrant roadway allows us to split that traffic up, so traffic that's headed from the south in Collier up to Bonita Beach Road and up to I-75 to the east would be able to take that quadrant roadway, avoiding the intersection of Old 41 and Bonita Beach Road. So effectively splitting the traffic that goes through that intersection in 2 and minimizing the delay at both locations by reducing the traffic volume through any one point. So we're currently working through the detailed analysis of exactly what the laneage would look like here, but this is the general direction we're headed. Also should add that we're proposing several traffic signals throughout the project at some of the major intersections at the Mediterra and Cordova here in Lee County to safely allow those left turns on and off of Old 41. These are the typical sections I mentioned. So throughout, we have about 105 feet of right-of-way. The plan is to stay within that 105 feet of right-of-way for the majority of the corridor. For some turn lanes and corner clips at intersections, right-of-way will be required, but the vast majority is staying within the right-of-way. You can see we do have a shared use path, 12-foot, shown there on the left side, and then space for a future sidewalk on the right side. The new quadrant roadway is what you see down at the bottom. That's that little piece that hooked over to Racetrack Road. That would be a 2-lane undivided roadway, again with a shared use path on one side and then a sidewalk on the other. Be looking at about 70 feet of right-of-way in that location. As far as the cost estimates, I mentioned that the design is programmed. That's the only phase here beyond PD&E that is programmed. That is in fiscal year 2027. You can see the numbers there between our current estimates and what's in your long-range transportation plan. The right-of-way, CI, and construction are not funded. You can see the estimates are currently pretty close between the DOT and Lee County there, so we'll continue to refine that as we finish off this study. As far as finishing this off, we're headed towards a public hearing in the fall of this year where we'll be displaying this preferred alternative for public feedback along with all the environmental engineering reports that go along with it. And then we'll be looking to finish off the PD&E study, that's what we call LDCA, no later than June 2026. That day is important because there are some new stormwater rules that come into effect after that date. If we're not completed by then, we're not grandfathered in. So we are looking to complete this in June of 2026. Just let you know, if you have any questions after the fact, you can get in contact with Stephen and we'll get you your answers. And last, just want to remind everybody, when someone, especially law enforcement, is pulled over at the side of the road, let's move over and give them some space. With that, open it up for any questions you may have.
Just a general question, when you split into the quadrants, was that done based on availability of right-of-way to continue the 4-lane, or was it an economical feature that it was just easier to do that way economically?
We've been working with the city of Bonita Springs. That is in their long-range plan to develop that quadrant road, create more of a grid system there. So we're trying to follow their vision for this area.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Shannon.
Slide 10 real quick, if you could go to that one. One of the things I noticed as we looked at that, so you're going to have a hearing in fall 2025, and then you're not even, design isn't funded till 27. You're not going to work on design till 27 and 28. I imagine then by the time this goes under construction, it's going to be potentially 5 years past fall of 2025 when you had the public hearing. What other checkpoints do you have along the way to remind the public of this project, that it's coming, so that they can be aware of it? Because if they really hear about it in 2025 and they don't actually see it built until they might forget that it's happening, that they were okay with it.
One thing I will add, this is an off-the-state system project, so all the future phases we do intend to be completed by the city or Collier County in that portion. So we would be handing that off to the local agencies to take the next steps.
Yes.
Are there any transit routes that operate in that segment of the road?
There are not.
And I have a second question. So you have the shared use path And then, and then you have a bicycle lane. So are there any safety features or anything like that that will be added to the shared use path? And I think that where I'm going with it is and it's appreciated that it's a shared use path, but when we have pedestrians and now everybody has e-bikes, and those e-bikes are going over 50 miles an hour, they do not need to be in the shared use path. So is there anything that is being done on the shared use path to kind of guide people that will be using it for safety of pedestrians and people that are using motorized scooters and e-bikes?
At this point, no, nothing specifically. We have the bike lanes for those people that do want to travel faster. Those are typically details that are worked out in the design phase as far as the signing and marking specifically on those paths. Sure.
It sounds like you were at our CAC meeting. Citizens Advisory Committee had a robust conversation about taking the extra space from the bike lanes and using it on the pathway and then delineating between it. Our direction moving forward is to bring back examples of how we might be able to separate some of these things with some conceptual stuff, but it's coming up at every meeting about the micromobility, a mix of people walking their dogs versus riding a faster micromobility device.
Thank you.
How wide is the bicycle lane in this graph you have?
7 feet.
7 feet.
Good.
I ride a bike quite a bit, and I have an e-bike also. And I find that the people that are going 15, 20 miles an hour on bikes, either electric or non-electric, are probably experienced bike riders, and they use the 7-foot lane. What I find on Estero Parkway, which we have 7 and 8 and 10, it's an issue we're going to have to deal with because folks that are delivering, you see an awful lot of e-bikes delivering food for whatever they are. They don't seem to use the bike lanes. They use the pathway, and they are going, some of them are probably going 20. So they're probably going to have some ordinances that say no e-bikes on our path because they're not 12 feet. But even at 12 feet, I've seen other parts of the country where they can divide it, bicycles only and the other. Not saying that people do it, but it is a hazard with the amount of e-bikes that are coming on stream right now. So I think all of us have to look at that when we build new road systems. I'm a proponent of 7-foot bike lanes. I've ridden hundreds of miles on a 7-foot bike lane and not had any issues at all on that. It's just a short road, but I think that shared paths can be an issue for bikes.
I want
Yes,
to
ma'am.
follow up on that comment on the shared use path, and I think that as we design roads, and roads have a speed limit for cars, and it's hard because the enforcement part was difficult, right? Yep. So you pass that on to law enforcement, and it becomes another problem too. That when we're designing shared use path, just as we have signage for cars, that we have to have a maximum speed limit. So e-bikes know that they have to be on the road with the cars. And most of you guys know this, but I'm a bicycle crash survivor of someone that was going 25 miles an hour and stopped with my body against a post. So I'm sitting here by the grace of God, but the physical challenges that came with that are a problem, and I think that's kind of what we see with micromobility. So I applaud that we're doing shared use paths and looking into the design components to make sure that we're addressing the speeds or educating with signage or something like that. I know it's a heavy subject, but we have to look at it in new roadways especially.
Any other comments?
So I like this program to widen the road, of course, and this is right in my district as well, but these north-south corridors are obviously vital for all the workers and traffic and everything we have going back and forth every day. So when I look at something like this, and it's going to be 5 years out until we get this built and finished, by the time we get to, I've often said, by the time we finish building the expansion we just did, we need to do it again, right? So can you look at what it would cost to make it 6 lanes now while we're already in the middle of this, instead of taking it apart to do it over again on another phase, it would seem like there'd be some economies of scale while you're already there, taking everything apart and installing your lines and infrastructure and associated paths, that you could do more. Everybody wants us to get ahead on our infrastructure projects. Where can we find those opportunities to expand and not wait to do it twice? It would seem two projects in 5 years apart would cost more than one expansion of the first expansion, so to speak. Can you help me understand that, or see what opportunities we might have to consider something like that on a relatively short, all things considered, path that we're looking at today?
Don?
So beyond 4 lanes is not anticipated on this roadway based on, and one of the reasons you see the quadrant in there is Bonita did not want 4 lanes going into 2 lanes through their downtown area. So, and to, how do I say, defend FDOT as part of this process when we're talking about what's the bike lanes and all the other stuff and what it looks like. This is really a local project that they're doing. So they're following their local standards. So Bonita had no plans to do that beyond that. Same with Collier County, beyond 4 lanes.
When I asked that question earlier on a few years ago, this is also a right-of-way acquisition of property to some areas. I think the right-of-way wasn't available for that. But like Don said, this is what Bonita wanted. Some didn't even want the 4 lanes, so unfortunately. But
I wasn't here for that part of the discussion.
I know, I'm just saying
I'm not trying to step on Bonita's toes by any means. It's a common question every day. Is like, how do we get ahead of things?
You're totally right. As soon as it's done, we'll be at the expand probably the maximum flow there. So it will probably need improvements, or they'll find another area to try to divert traffic to another network. So it will be that issue. So.
We all want to get better. We just
tried to do a flyover at 41 of Beach Road years ago. We didn't get the study approved on that. So.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, please.
I want to add a couple of more comments to what Don mentioned. So the MPO goes through the long process, right? Part of the process, we identify what is the geometry that you would like to see based on the traffic levels that we're projecting, based on the growth that's anticipated in this area, the population growth. So the studies that are done for these projects are so all the analysis that's done to define what's needed on the roadway is done through the planning process, but also when we do the project development study, we do the traffic projections to see, okay, what's the design needed, how do we do it, 1.6 or so, and what is the traffic level at that time, what is the geometry that's needed, then what does the local plan say, and how do we get consistency between what the traffic numbers are saying in the local plans, and that's how we implement an alternative concept.
Okay, no, I appreciate the perspective, and we all want to make everybody happy every day, as Brian likes to say, you know. But we just get asked so many times, how can we get ahead of this, and how do we do this? Every time there's a wreck on 75, these roads get blown up, and nobody can get from here to there. And I just wanted to see if we could upgrade the plan as we go a little bit on the way to chip away at some of these things. So I appreciate you enlightening me. I just wish we could do more. Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, let's move on to item number 9, Don. Thank you. Appreciate the presentation.
So the comments that you've had so far about some of this is actually why we're in this study. Because it is things like, well, how come this road is between this road not widened or whatever? And there's all kinds of different issues of why. Sometimes it's money, sometimes it's what, you know, it was mentioned, what the local jurisdiction wants out of the process. So the background for actually doing this is partially because of that as well. So this came up last year in legislation. It didn't pass, about combining us. This was the year after the previous year. The legislation had said combining the Pinellas, Hillsborough, and Pasco MPOs. So they did a study, and it was submitted to the legislature December, not last, about a year ago, I guess. So one of the things out of the process, we were having a discussion between the two MPOs. about getting some of the data ahead of time, because one of the issues, if it got into the legislation this year, it might be July before we know if it passes, and then they'd say, okay, by November or December we want to study. So we wanted a little more time as part of the process. The MPO there voted to approve doing a study, and so FDOT ended up coming up with $250,000 to do this study. So they're managing the scope, so that's why I don't have this as an approval item. It will probably change. I know they're having some discussions with Qatar right now about more specifics within the scope. But this is kind of what we put together, the two MPOs, to try to address moving forward as part of this process. So one of the things, I've described it as doing kind of a layered process, because if you can't agree on the voting members, then why go all the way to the end process, what it looks like. So, but before we get to the voting process, I got to be able to tell you what's some positives, what's some negatives, and then also we have some bigger questions to ask Federal Highway and FTA as part of this process too. From the discussions, there's only, as far as we can tell, there's only about one other MPO in the country that has combined recently. It's definitely smaller than what we're dealing with here. But as I said, the Tampa area is looking at this process right now. What I'm raising as part of those questions, one of the examples is that if you look in the federal regulations, it says that for the voting membership, 75% of the, essentially you represent population, 75% of that population has to approve for that apportionment. And the central cities. It says city and then IES in parentheses. So the question out of that is, we're two TMAs. We're the Cape Coral TMA and the Bonita Springs TMA. So does that mean that just Cape Coral plus, whatever to make 75%, or Cape Coral and Bonita Springs and to make 75% between the two? So there's some questions that we have as part of this process. So the way I've kind of laid it out is do the kickoff meeting, do the coordination to answer much more than those questions. Obviously, some of it is even the funding issues that I brought up before. Some of the other stuff is, even things like our timing is different than their timing for certain things like certification. Are we then just a new MPO? That's kind of the prevailing answers out there is yes, we're just like a new MPO starting all over. So that means you got to reproduce everything that you did essentially over those times. Anyway, getting those answers, so then before we come back and tell you what the benefits and document all that, before we're asking, all right, what is the proposed apportionment plan? Now, on paper last year, I did an apportionment plan where all of our cities for both MPOs could still have a representation, maybe not the same number as today, and the two county commissions on there as well. It fits within it's a 25 maximum is our membership. Does it turn out to that? Who knows what it is out of that. Anyway, before we answer those questions, and one of the things we had talked about doing in here is having some kind of a consensus agreement before we go through the whole, because it goes through the whole process, and then at the end, your own city council will vote for it. But why go through the whole process if someone's going to throw a wrench into it later on? Now, maybe we don't even get that far. We'll see what happens as part of that process. And then it gets into determining the organized structure, costs, and policies. And we are independent, as Commissioner Ruane had talked about before. They are attached to the county. I don't believe if we combine that any of our jurisdictions or the two counties would step up and say, yes, we'll be attached to you at this point. I don't think anybody wants to raise going back to the RPC at this point as a thing, but at least Commissioner Ruane's been involved with the history of that and can bring up the history about that as well. But those are some of the things to look at detailed later on. Now, we have gone as far as when this started, about 6 months ago when there was more conversation about it, we've shared each other's operational costs, what we pay for, what they get for free, that type of thing, to be able to help in this process as well. And we'll have a lot more conversations about it, but get to an end result of, is it feasible? Did we even agree on certain things and to go from there? I will say as part of this whole process that some of the issues that are being raised, in statewide meetings, it's come up that, they want MPOs to combine because somewhere it goes from 2 lanes to a 4 lane. Well, we have that situation here, Burnstow Road, where, Charlotte's widened it. We're not quite there yet. Is it because of that? Is it because you don't want to do it? I don't know. There's a lot of issues with some of, a statement like that. But it does touch on some of the issues about how are we going to commute between these 2 areas, and can we see some of these roads in the future? And in the backdrop of some of this and some of the meetings I've been in, County Road 951 extensions come up repeatedly. The one problem we're going to have with that is we're doing an updated cost estimate on that. It's about $1.7 billion, and we're not really done yet. It was assumed to be tolled. You got to carry a lot of traffic to pay for a road at that level. So we'll have more conversations about that moving forward as well. So some of these aren't easy solutions. We combine or we don't combine. But anyway, open up any comments or questions anybody has.
Just another question. Just try and think through the incentive to do this based on what the state is thinking. Is the state looking at this just to facilitate their administration? Or are they looking at real constraints that you just described, where it's a 2-lane going to a 4-lane, there's no coordination or poor coordination? So, I mean, that would tell us how we need to respond probably a little bit more clearly as to how we might respond to feed them information as to how well we're doing those aspects of it or not well. Right?
And obviously it's different for different people. I think it's a combination of both of those. I mean, I think in some respects somebody's going to say, I think we can save on administrative costs. We'll see. But then there's also the opposite side of it is that, yes, we don't think you coordinate because this road didn't connect with that road the way it should have.
So the incentive, as Commissioner Hammond mentioned before, the incentive to really get out in front of this and communicate how well we're trying to do it on our own is probably beneficial to keep it to ourselves. So it adds weight to what we're doing and continue to do that way. And then I think probably it's necessary to flesh out the details of voting and how we administer it internally here. But I think that letter is very important up front, So.
Well, and that will grow as we go through this process too.
Thank you.
Yes.
The scope, or at some point, I think that for us to have the advantages and disadvantages, not besides knowing where this came from, right? Obviously, when you're vested within your community, it's hard to think about doing that merging because it will create disadvantages. I think that when we're pursuing funding for particular things, but the list of advantages and disadvantages and how it impacts the localities, I think that's something important that needs to come out of this study.
Yes.
Any other questions? Any other comments? So Don, relative to this, just so I reiterate what I've heard, you're going to write a letter for us, obviously addressing our concerns about the consolidation and some of the issues that we've presented here today?
Yes, I'll do that.
Okay, great. We'll get a draft of it and we'll deal with it next meeting.
Or somewhere in the executive committee maybe first.
Executive committee meeting? Great. Yeah. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Sure.
My thought was to take at first a collaborative approach. At the county commission, we've even begun bringing in the delegation members to our EOC. We had that lunch that one time to talk to them about how we handle emergency declarations and things like that, and disaster cleanup. And certainly, I think a lot of them, their eyes were open to some of our processes that they might not have known we had in place. And I feel like the spirit of collaboration has really improved since we've been talking and just taking more of an educational approach. Like I said, these folks at the state level obviously deal with hundreds, thousands of bills every session. They've got to have a lot going on. And certainly they know their communities because they ran and won an election in their communities. But they may not know what we're doing here today, this morning at the MPO, because they're obviously at a committee hearing. And so whatever we could do to help them see what our processes are so that they know, hey, we do actually regularly check in with the Collier MPO. We have a joint meeting once a year. We constantly look for ways we can do joint studies like the congestion management plan together. We are proactively looking for ways to coordinate with our neighbors. And also, I think it also would be good from an educational standpoint to let them know that, I mean, I'm just being transparent. I don't drive enough in Collier County to actually probably make an educated decision on Collier County's future road network, right? I would need to, it would be hard for us as the Lee County MPO to combine with Collier County's MPO and then look at the Lee and Collier network together and then be making decisions about, I don't know, Livingston Road or something like that, where honestly I don't ever drive. I live in Cape Coral. So I think they need to understand from an educational standpoint, and not necessarily we oppose you, we're against you standpoint, just what we are doing proactively.
No, I hear you loud and clear, Commissioner. I think it's probably best if we have Don put together, formulate some thoughts. We don't have to, necessarily send it, but maybe reach out to them, try to see how we can collaborate better. Maybe invite them to a meeting or something. But you're right. We've tried to really educate them because, unfortunately, I think there's so many decisions they make and don't even understand. They may not necessarily understand the complexities of the situation, understand what they're doing. Everybody's like, consolidation's great, right? We're going to be more efficient. We use all the nice words, but at the end of the day, we're representing our community. We're the closest to the community. We hear what the constituents. And not that they don't, it's just that when they talk about roadways, it's generally this table that is obviously crucified or certainly vilified in the process. So I don't disagree with anything you're saying. Maybe as a step is have Don draft a letter. We could certainly talk about the next step. How do we arrange and really facilitate the collaboration with them? Because what I don't want to do is send a letter and then why'd you send me a letter? You didn't reach out to me. I thought we had better communication, and I don't have any issue trying to do. I think we've done a great job trying to work with them and trying to continue to make sure they understand our issues. That's really the complication we've always had, and it's been that rub as long as I've been doing this. It's why we talk about home rule, and it's just I think, unfortunately, their task is so monumental that they don't have the time to really digress for a second, analyze the situation, look at the complexity, and say, okay, maybe we shouldn't do that. And I respect all the delegation well, but let's take a draft, and we could certainly have a more substantive conversation. I'd love to see some of Don's points. So, and I'm all for reaching out to anyone in the delegation. They're invited to any of our meetings, but at least that's the attempt.
Yeah, I think that's great.
Just to add on to that, we were at a meeting earlier this week with Senator Presidemo, talking about how many bills are coming in front of them. She expects 2,500 bills in the next 3 weeks, and they only have about 400, 500. So there's a long jam of stuff coming down the road. So for them to be able to look at this on a quality basis, I think understanding the issues is very difficult. The second part is you mentioned how you don't drive in Collier County. I can imagine at the state level, a lot of people who are making decisions about what the compaction consolidation will be, sure as heck don't drive down here a lot either. There may be a few. So to emphasize your points, home rule certainly makes it, and if we can demonstrate that we're leading the game pretty much in this thing, I think it's very helpful. So I think it's just that emphasis to what you're saying.
Is there a sponsor for this consolidation, a single representative?
Last year there was. We don't know if it's going to. Last year there was. This year we don't know.
Now it's at the governor level saying
It never got voted on in the end. It was one of those 2,500 that doesn't get.
Who was the sponsor last year?
It was somebody, the Sarasota, right? McFarland, yeah.
So it sounds like we're in consensus that home rule is what we prefer, and we have to do a study to prove that we don't have a problem right now, because somebody at the state level may impose their will on us to solve a problem that doesn't exist. Seems to be a pattern of certain legislation that's been tabled the last couple of years. And I am pleased to hear that the group wants our independents to represent our area individually and not have that diluted. And I think it's important that we have that local home rule, and you're driving on the roads and in your neighborhoods, has been mentioned. And some of these, this pattern of unsolicited shotgun weddings in different agencies seems to be a trend of certain legislation, and I'm glad we're standing against that because I think that's really important.
David, you sure it's only 18 weeks you're doing this? Really? You summarized that pretty well.
I would add one comment to Commissioner Hammond's statement about education, too. We've talked about this even as part of this scope because obviously with the new federal bill that was passed a few years ago, everybody said, oh, we're going to get a lot more money. So there's a thought there's a whole lot of money out there. So part of it needs to be, this is how much Collier gets to decide on spending. This is how we get to get on it. And, I mean, if you've seen the Secretary's response to certain things about going after discretionary money and how little they've gotten through the process versus formula, I think that's probably some of the education that needs to be as well.
Right, and just to finalize the comments, I mean, I think for some of the people that are new to this organization, new to this discussion, I mean, it's not very common where you have local, regional, and the Secretary of the Department of Transportation sit at a meeting having these types of conversations. So it's a complex issue. Anyone that comes from the private sector, as I was speaking to the Secretary last night, we have expectations that just are different in the private sector as opposed to the public sector. We're doing the best we can, and honestly, the state's grown tremendously, and I can't even imagine the type of schedule that the Secretary has, but he continues to try to help us, and we're blessed in so many ways to have that collaboration and that opportunity. But we just thought that was helpful. If anyone's new to the group, you haven't met the Secretary, go introduce yourself. Man works 24 hours a day. He and I were speaking last night pretty late in the night, so I can't thank you enough, sir. Any other? Yes.
I think I've seen you at a lot of the meetings with Pasadoma lately. I have a good respect for her. Once we get this drafted up, would it be worthwhile for us to maybe touch bases with her, because she's going to be, second in the Senate, and just get her opinion? And she's usually pretty free about giving her opinion, and it's usually pretty accurate. She may be able to either kill this, or if we wanted to push it forward, she could help, I believe. So I don't know that process, but it seems like that would be a good place to start.
Last year she was against it. Not sure where she is this year, but I know last year she was against the Collier and Lee County part.
Yeah, I think yes. Face-to-face is always best, right? Anytime you, and the delegation, that's one thing I admire about them. They're always really approachable. They're always up for a conversation. So yeah, I mean, once we have our message together and our talking points together, sharing that face-to-face, if it's our chairman who wants to do that or whoever, I mean, as a group, we want to do it with our individual delegation members. I think face-to-face always works great.
I think this group needs to obviously look at what Don's going to put together. I think we need to have another discussion. I think the approach is right. I'm just filling in for the chair responsibilities today. So whoever the chair is for the MPO is probably best to articulate that. I don't have a problem as the chair of the BOCC, but I also recognize there's 19 people in this group. I think it's only fair. And since John didn't come today, we might as well give him another responsibility.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, we'll move on to the next topic, Don. Thanks for the discussion, all.
Thank you. Any public comments on items not on the agenda?
Any public comment for any items that aren't on the agenda you'd like to come up and present them to us? Seeing none. Lee Tran, I'm sorry, Lee Tran.
Good morning, Kelly Fernandez from Leetran. I have a brief update for you this morning about our services and projects. Our fixed route ridership for the first quarter of FY25 was approximately 440,000 riders, which is within 1% of the prior year. Our paratransit trips continue to average 600 passengers daily, which includes transportation disadvantage trips. Our Mobility on Demand transported 15,283 passengers for the first quarter. That includes 10,945 passengers in Bonita Springs and 4,338 passengers in Lehigh. In addition, our Lehigh fixed route service, the Route 515, transported 5,558 passengers. These two modes combined reflects a 70% increase in passengers traveled from FY21 to FY24. Our 2025 Transit Development Plan continues to progress, and to date we've conducted 2 steering committee meetings and 2 focus group meetings. Passenger surveys were conducted in December, and results are currently being compiled. Stakeholder interviews will be conducted in the coming months, and the TDP is still on track for delivery to FDOT for review by September 1st of 2025. Our ADA bus stop improvements project remains underway. The project includes the design, engineering, and construction of 136 bus stops. The design for the first 50 stops is underway, with 60% plans anticipated by February. Construction of those 50 stops is expected to begin in fall of 25. We opened 3 new bus stops around the Merchants Crossing area in North Fort Myers just before the first of the year. Those are seeing a significant amount of use. And our Lehigh Acres Park and Ride is on pace for a spring completion. We recently placed an order to purchase 2 electric buses and the associated charging equipment. The design is currently underway for the charging infrastructure, and we anticipate delivery of those buses in winter of 26. We received the final delivery of 2 tram trailers that operate on Fort Myers Beach, which completes the replacement of 2 full tram trailer sets that we purchased this year. And our driving staff, our drivers, are at an all-time high at approximately 12% higher than prior annual averages. And that's what I have for you this morning, unless you have any questions.
Questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
FDOT.
Good morning, Chair and Board. My name is Wayne Gaither. I was coming up to introduce our new MPO liaison, and then it dawned on me, for some of you, I may be a new face as well. So we provide a lot of the service to the MPO, working with your staff, and Marcellus Evans, who's off to my left here, has already been working with your staff on the day-to-day activities going on. Invoices, a lot of the administrative work that's going on. He's going to be a more familiar face for you to see as he provides the FDOT reports for all upcoming MPO board meetings. And with that, I will turn this over to Marcellus.
Hello, everyone. I'm Marcellus again. Just for the FDOT report, there is a ribbon cutting ceremony here today at 11. It'll be for the Caloosahatchee River Bridge, and it'll be at Centennial Park Pavilion. Again, that's at 11 a.m.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you, sir. Announcement time?
Our next meeting is a joint meeting with Charlotte off of Burnstone Road at the usual place. and it's a February 14th, Valentine's Day.
Great. And where's the location?
We'll send you information on it, but it's a church it's in Charlotte County over the line off of Burnstow Road.
I'll bring chocolates. Anything else, Don?
Just what I put in your packet, the State Road 78 online option is January 22nd. The Burnt Store public hearing is January 28th, and then we'll hear a wrap-up of that at our joint meeting on the 14th. And the Florida Greenways and Trails Summit is in Venice on February 5th and the 6th, if you are interested. That's it.
Any other? Yes.
For everybody in the MPO, and Don, if you can forward this, the MPO has a Safe Street for All dashboard and survey, and that has been on their website. There is a 3-minute survey that I think that if we pass it on to our constituents, we've done that with the city, put it on social media, put it on the website, obviously share it with your network. But for you to take the surveys, like looking at crashes and looking at solutions, and if we don't voice our opinion, we will continue to carry on the issues, and we don't say something, this is an opportunity, it takes 3 minutes of our time. So it's on the MPO's website. I will ask that, Don, if you can forward that to everybody, and we can share it with the constituents and take the survey ourselves.
Anything else?
Nope.
Yes, sir.
As you said, maybe some people don't drive around all the time throughout the whole county, so the Village of Estero is on March 15th at the Estero Rec Center, right off of Corkscrew, is going to have what we call Estero Fest, a combined effort of the Chamber of Commerce and the Village of Estero, and that we're going to be celebrating our 10th anniversary, which was actually December 31st of last year. And if you like good music, we're going to have Ben Allen. I think a lot of you have heard and seen Ben Allen. There's no admission cost. There's going to be a beer and wine area, and we're expecting to have maybe 3,000 or 4,000 people out there. So we welcome you all to come and bring your friends and neighbors. The more, the better. We'll have food trucks there also.
Nice.
Thank you. It goes 1 to 8. You don't have to be there for 8 hours.
No.
Huh?
March 15th.
Any other issues?
Where are the eyes?
Call for an adjournment?
Second.
Thank you. Adjourned.